Okay, thanks, Tim. I'll be brief with my comments and then leave more time for questions. So on this current proposal, right now Lapeer Community Schools levies 2.75 mils for our outstanding debt. That is currently the lowest in Lapeer County. If a yes vote is passed, we would actually be reducing that to 2.65. So it would actually be going down by 0.10, and that is articulated in the bond language. In 2019, we went to the community for a $94 million proposal, which was soundly defeated. And in the surveying that we did of the community, we asked, you know, what is more palatable? What is something that you think is a better number? What are some of the purposes of these funds you'd like to see that be dedicated to? The primary purpose of these funds are used for basic infrastructure, so heating and cooling upgrades, replacement of roofs, pavement, significant dollars for safety and security. We've got a lot of work to do in terms of making the schools a little bit safer, door barricading systems, changing out glass exterior and wood exterior doors for steel, upgrading our PA public address systems as we can communicate what's happening in the building. Kind of a nuts and bolts, bare necessities bond. Unlike what Alan was discussing with the senior millage, none of these funds can actually be utilized for salaries and benefits. It all has to be geared towards the things I just mentioned, so physical improvements. So we've got some upgrades happening. Every single building in the district will be impacted in some way, some more than others, depending on need. So areas like our transportation department, which has a dirt parking lot, for example, would be paved. We'd purchase some new buses with these funds as well. So it does represent an actual decrease in your mill rate for what's happening with the schools. And like I said, the majority of those funds are basically in the buckets that I articulated. So there are no real outstanding technology costs. A lot of that is taken care of by the district. We also received some federal dollars this year. It took care of a lot of our technology needs. So things, when you do a normal school bond, you see a lot of wiring and technology upgrades. We don't really have a need for that. We took several $100,000 out of our general fund to upgrade our security camera system. I can tell you that our school district in Lapeer County was very involved in the school shooting that happened in Oxford earlier this year. We learned a lot about what was good about kind of our emergency response preparedness in our school system and where we were lacking. So a lot of the recommendations to improve security came from that incident, both working with our county sheriff's department, Oxford schools, our construction management partners, and our own experience about what's kind of happening in the world out there. And it's a unique time to be in schools just in general, given having to have things like active shooter drills and on the costs associated with making our buildings a little more secure, and it's unique times. We're very fortunate in Lapeer schools. We have 3 full-time school resource officers. That's really unheard of for a district of our size. That's due in large part to our partnership with Lapeer City Police and the County Sheriff's Office, who do fund a portion of those salaries of those folks and commit them off the road to be in our schools. So we do have a lot of really good things that our taxpayers are helping to support already. We're very hopeful that this can pass. I could get into lots of specifics about the needs of the district. I won't do that. I will say we have some systems that have been audited by engineering firms, air handler units, for example, that are 40+ years old, just extremely inefficient, very costly to repair. Many of the systems are so outdated they don't even have replacement parts for them or technicians that know how to work on them anyway. And so that's been a real struggle for us. So in my time, this is my 12th year as the superintendent in Lapeer schools. We've spent a lot of time trying to identify efficiencies. There is a major business component to running a school system that a lot of folks don't necessarily want to talk about, but it is important. We are one of the largest employers in the county. It's a large budget, and we have to do our best to make sure that we are spending those taxpayer dollars in a sound and financially responsible way. We have closed 4 school buildings in my time here, including a very large high school in Lapeer West, and merging our high schools, which reduced our overall cost. We've had major reductions in staffing, major reductions in operational costs. And in my 12 years here, I'm proud to say that we are audited by the state of Michigan on an annual basis. They produce a document that compares how you spend your dollars in a community school district versus the other 500 plus school districts in the state. We are in the bottom 10% for administration and operational costs compared to the entire state of Michigan, and we're in the top 25% of putting our money into the classroom. So we take our dollars, we put them where they belong with the kids. We have done very well with little. We have not passed an increased bond millage in Lapeer schools in several decades. We're pretty solid with renewals. The community supports us with that, but there is not, I think we're close to 5 decades of asking for an increase in the community and getting that to pass. So, kind of learned our lesson in 2019 back for this version, and we're very hopeful that it will pass with your approval. However, much like what Alan said, our job is to provide information. Your job is to make those decisions, and all we do is give you just the facts. That's our primary role here. So, with that, Tim, I'll open it up for questions and see if I can answer them. Except for him, he's not allowed to ask questions. Yeah.
I got stupid.
Okay, go ahead.
Maurice Freed, resident of Mayfield Township. 2 issues. This is a renewal, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the second issue is, what about the surplus land that you have, the surplus properties that are for sale? Will that, if you sell Mayfield, for example,
yeah,
will those funds go for bricks and mortar improvement of the other buildings?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is very directly yes. So we have policy language that determines surplus sale of property really goes into the kind of capital projects budget. So you sell Mayfield for, let's throw a number out there, $500,000. That's $500,000 that needs for a roof or a boiler place or replacement or an upgrade in some other area of the district.
Well, it'd be the same. It'd be allocated for the same funds that this millage would be used for.
Very similarly, yes. Yep.
And how much money is this millage going to generate?
This is going to generate $44,840,000.
Over how many years?
So it's it's right here under the 24-year. Not more than 24 years.
24.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just as an extension of that, it only extends our current debt 9 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Just real quickly, is there any validity to the comment or information we read a little while ago that you were thinking perhaps of doing something with Lapeer West, either bringing it back and fully extending it, enlarging it, and making that the high school of choice?
Yeah, that was part of the 2000. That's a great question. There's a lot of confusion around that. Mm-hmm. That was a big part of the 2019 bond. We were going to make that Lapeer West site the home of Lapeer High School, basically tear that entire building down with a few exceptions, and make that the home of the home. That is not feasible with the amount of money that we're raising here. So when we merged the high schools 9 years ago, the physical health of the old Lapeer East was far superior to that of West. It was a little bit larger in terms of number of classrooms, parking lot spaces, things like that. But the property of Lapeer West, now the Center for Innovation, is much better part of town, kind of the center. It had a lot of newer amenities like the home football stadium stands, the tennis courts donated by the Optimists, things like that. So we decided then that's got to be a viable part of our campus, right? And we still needed the building because we had some overflow, right? So when we first merged the high schools, it was pretty tight squeeze in Rowan Warner, in Zemmer, and at Lapeer High School, the old East. So we had 700 or 800 students a day going through the old Lapeer West. We simply don't have that volume 9 years later. It's much, much reduced. So this time around, we've got to take a look at that old West facility. So we don't have the students we had 9 years ago. we are not using large portions of that building, but we're paying to heat it, to cool it, to light it, to clean it, and maintain it. As it continues to degrade, I mean, for example, I'm not going to spend $1 million to put a new roof on a building that isn't used, or only a small portion of it is used. So this plan calls for a demolition of a large part of the north end of that building, an expansion of some parking, because we run out of parking very quickly there for large events like craft show, football games, band festivals, things like that, track meets. And we're going to maintain some of the classroom space. We put a relatively new gymnasium on that site several years ago. We're going to keep that. So it's going to look a little bit smaller because our need is simply not there. So that will be covered in the proposed costs here. Great question. Thank you.
Good.
We had a couple more here, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask one first.
Oh, well, he's got the mic, so sorry, ladies.
Just a quick one. You're doing good, man. You're
Thanks,
dazzling. Can you explain this sign for me so that
Sure.
we know? Because to me it's confusing, and I want to
Yep. So,
everybody to understand.
it's a school improvement bond is the kind of the tagline, but since we're not raising any taxes to get this money generated, and that's a very simple formula. So the mill rate is based on the percentage of total taxable value in our school district. So the last time at 2.75, let's say, and I'm just using generic numbers here, but let's say the total taxable value of the properties in our school district was $1 billion. That's pretty accurate. 2.75 mils on that 1 billion raised X amount of money. Well, since that last assessment, let's say that that value is now 1.25 billion. So it's 2.75 of a larger number, and that is the gap that we're now accounting for. So we can generate $44 million if we maintain that 2.75 because it is applied to a larger total taxable value of 1.25 billion as a generic example, without raising taxes. And in our case, we can generate that money and actually reduce the levy from 275 to 265. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
I've got it. I just want to make a comment.
How did that microphone fly?
I have a magic carpet.
I saw, I think it was in the paper, could have been online, every building you guys had put down the improvements to every single building, and I just wanted to comment that I think that was really great, and I thank you for doing that because I understood things a lot better.
Yeah, and Carol, that's really funny you mentioned that because it started with a question from the community that was very critical we have 4 elementary schools remaining. We had 7 elementaries when I first started here. Back in 2007, we had 12 elementary schools. That tells you how things have changed. Just since 2007, 12 elementary schools down to 4. And I don't see us closing any more schools. We are really kind of leveling off where we're at with student population, so I don't see any more buildings being closed. But we had parents who were saying, well, gosh, why are they spending so much? They're spending, let's say, $5 million at Schickler and only $2 million at Lynch. Well, that's just an assessment of where those two buildings are. Lynch has received the most newest upgrades back in 2007. Schickler is in dire straits in certain areas. We have 3 of our 4 elementary schools that the gym and the cafeteria are the same place. So you've got students that are exiting, I'm in our schools every day. Custodians and teachers and sometimes superintendents are wiping down tables after the last lunch is over, and here comes a gym class, trying to come in. So Lynch is one of our buildings that has a separate auditorium and a cafeteria. So that difference, folks needed to see in writing. So here's what Schickler's getting, here's what Lynch is getting, here's the bus garage. So yeah, that came from a criticism, though.
Denise Burberry-Milston again. First of all, I'm going to start out with a compliment. Our dear son attended Lapeer System and did fantastic, and we had a great journey the entire way. And we appreciate that, because his later years, obviously you were involved with that at Lapeer and at the high school. So that was awesome. A lot of people who are going to be deciding yes or no on this millage are going to be thinking about other things as to whether they want to support the school or not. So my question to you, as the leader of the education system in this county, how are you addressing the critical race theory?
Well, I'm not really sure how that's related, and not to be dismissive, but we have monthly board meetings. I have community forums on a fairly regular basis where we invite people to come in and ask us any question they want. I was asked to come here and speak about the bond. As far as specific things like critical race theory, that's just simply not taught in Lapeer Community Schools. It's been addressed in public fashion at our board meetings. We have a number of folks that in the community have requested to review our curriculum. Okay, and I invite anyone in here to do the same. You can get access to any textbook, any supplemental material, any website that's used in a classroom, and you can evaluate it because that is your right as a taxpayer. In order for a school system to adopt a new piece of curriculum, you're required to have 2 board meetings, 1 full month worth of time, to announce to the community your plans, give them the chance to come in there, and essentially leave the textbooks and the curriculum on a table that can be accessed not behind an unlocked door. Right? So as far as all of the issues that are happening right now in public education, and I'm very aware of a lot of that stuff happening, my stance in my 12 years as the school district leader have been very, very consistent. I believe in a classroom environment that is a laboratory of ideas, where a teacher is a facilitator of good, quality, robust discussion. The job of an educator is to be a neutral dispenser of information and a facilitator of student discussion. Our job is not to teach kids what to think. Our job is to teach kids how to process through their own thinking, understand as best they can both sides of an argument. We're not afraid to talk about things that are hot button issues out there in society because they're going to be adults and they're living in that world too. It's become increasingly difficult to do that in our business because social media has really complicated our lives. I think a lot of you are probably in the same boat. I didn't grow up with this. I didn't grow up with the internet. I learned it like all of us did. A lot of great benefits, a lot of wonderful tools, but also Pandora's box of problems for teachers to manage, for parents to manage. My dad, God rest his soul, before he died, said I would never want to raise kids today compared to the 70s when we were growing up as kids. So the challenges of what information and some poisonous things that are trying to get into the minds of our kids, our teachers are trying to stand at the schoolhouse gate and trying to keep the classroom environment as sanctified as they can, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to do that because kids are on their phone going, oh yeah, I don't know about that, what do you think about this? So whether it's an issue like critical race theory or pick any issue that's out there in our society today, we have to be really cautious because these are not indoctrination centers. These are publicly funded institutions that need to reflect the values of the local community. We're seeing lots of discussion in our country, I think, attacking some fundamental foundational things about America, and folks not really understanding the distinction between federal powers versus state and local. There's nothing more local than public schools, because that Board of Education is it's the closest thing we have to elected government where you can be that involved, right, and really impact. And I take that role very seriously, right? I'm not a CEO of a privately held company. Okay, my leadership has to reflect the tone and tenor of the community that I'm fortunate to work in, who pays my salary. So do I have opinions? Yep. Do I got ideas? Yep. Do I have political opinions? You bet your butt. Okay, I was a civics, government, economics teacher. Okay, my kids never knew who I voted for, though, because that wasn't my job. My job was to ask them, what do you think? Here are some facts that the folks on this side think. Here are the facts folks on this side believe. Try to convince that person of why they shouldn't think that, and listen respectfully when they try to do the same. So, it's also a dangerous game to get into what do we allow in versus what do we keep out, right? So, both sides have been on the book burning bandwagon at different points in our history, right? At some points, it was this group of folks that were banning books and deciding what was going to be in schools, and 40 years later, it's a different group. So one thing that I communicate to our staff on a fairly regular basis is your neutrality is a central component of quality instruction. You are a dispassionate facilitator.
So that was a very, very good explanation. Are you able to stand strong then if policy from the state tries to say, oh, here you go, you can have this if? What happens in that case?
So one of the things, and that's a great question, because the carrots and sticks of education federally and from the state are, you don't do this, you don't get funding, right? So you're always dancing this fine line between, well, I'm not sure my community is really going to resonate with this versus, well, do I want to pay the people that are working here? I mean, we've got 600 plus employees. But the diploma that we issue as the only certificate, right, of completion is a Lapeer Community Schools issued piece of paper. It is not a state of Michigan decree, okay? So as it relates, that's a hill worth dying on as far as I'm concerned, right? So I've got, 25 years in this business. I'm going to retire, if blessed, as the superintendent of Lapeer, and I do see these things coming down the road. I do see, but whether you agree with this or not, the First Amendment is designed to protect speech that we don't like. I believe that. I believe that to my core. And there's a lot of things that happen in a lot of different venues that I'm not really pleased about. But the recourse that you guys have is if we do that too much, but the Board of Education and myself as the head of the school district, you have the opportunity to replace us and put people that are going to reflect those values. So sometimes we're going to agree on what those are, but I might not agree what you have to say, but I'm sure going to defend your right to say it. And I believe that with students, with how they are beginning to learn to express themselves, because these are 15, 16-year-old children, okay? 8-year-old children, whatever age they are. What does community schools mean? It doesn't mean you drop your kids off and let all the experts teach them right from wrong, values, morality. It's you're a strong family, you raise your children, we support you, and hopefully we mirror and reflect the values that we want to instill in our kids. And that's a very careful balance. Now, my 3 kids are all out of high school. I have a daughter going to be a senior. My 2 boys are graduated. I was their teacher. My wife was their teacher. Okay? We taught them all those fundamental values and expected the school to reflect that, and we were very closely monitoring that, right? And had lots of conversations with teachers, and counselors and coaches with my kids. I manage the district as if I'm speaking directly to parents, because to me that's our students are number one, and the parents are our second most important demographic, because they're making the decision to give their kids to us. So it's a balancing act.
So it does relate, because I go back to our little neighborhood, and people will ask me, well, what do you think about this millage? And then the next topics come up related, which is CRT or the other topics, and you gave me an opportunity to see your insight, to be able to share that with them. So it is related. Making a decision financially for a lot of people, it will be another extra cost over a long period of time, and so it weighs heavily. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're correct. It's disingenuous to assume that folks aren't making decisions on the 360 degrees of what we deal with. I mean, if you really believe that, and I just believe that educating kids is one of the most important things that you can do with your life, and I take that really, really seriously. And but my own politics, my own belief system, it's not like I'm trying to make a bunch of little Matt Wandries. because, well, that'd be kind of scary, and I don't think anybody would appreciate that. But it's about helping kids find who they are and their voice in these classrooms.
Let me just ask two very brief things. Number one, can you address the population flow of the student population, increase, decrease over the period? And the last issue I'd like you to address is, if in fact this fails, how are you going to operate?
Okay, great. First of all, when I came here in 2011-12, we were at 6,200 students. We are now below 5,000. That has followed a very common trend across the state of Michigan, but also the declining birth rate in Lapeer County itself has really impacted us. 38% of all students, or all children born in Lapeer County eventually become Lapeer Community Schools students. Okay, so we look at that number, it's a really good indicator of, in 5-6 years, what our incoming kindergarten class will look like. So we're going to be below, we'll be in between 4,500 and 5,000 students total for the foreseeable future. For the foreseeable future, we have a really stable 300 students enter as kindergarten and early 5 students, and that number's been very consistent. Our ability to project 5 and 10 years down the road, Maurice, has been really spot on. And we had to do that when we were merging the high schools, because if we got that wrong and I didn't have enough room for those kids, I wouldn't be the superintendent anymore. So the second question is, if this doesn't pass, we're in real trouble. And the only reason I say that is because looking at the election history, our ability to pass an increase, because it will be an increase, because when the mill rate drops and we ask for this kind of money again, it will be an increase, and the history of that passing in the county in our district is extremely poor.
All right.
Extremely poor.
I hate this thing. Addressing back to what you said, all right, in other states, there have been successful parents that stormed the school boards and changed the people on the school board because of critical race theory. So, do you see in a couple years from now that it's going to be, it's going to be where even those parents that succeeded in changing their school boards for the better are going to be under that same pressure of fundage?
You know, it's hard to say, and all superintendents prefer really boring school board meetings, just so you know. Boring is good. But, I'm very, I want to manage the school district in a way that when the community views my board online, my leadership, this is a professional organization. And we are not, I don't want my board meetings to turn into some of the circuses I've seen in other states, because it is a circus. And much of that is the fault of the leadership. I'm not saying it's the parents. And we would be wise as a citizenry to use the 2 ears that we were given and listen to the taxpayers and the parents. And I think far too often school districts in general have placed themselves in a position of authority to the degree that they think they know better. I think it's a very dangerous thing to do, because it leads to a lack of accountability. When you think, well, who are these parents coming in to tell us that we're the expert educators? The best way to position yourself in a community school district is to say, we're trained and we are expert in certain things. That's a fact. We went to school, we put hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in our educations, and we're good at certain things. But there are certain things that are the province of the family, right? And we have to safeguard and protect what the family is responsible for and what the school is responsible for. And I'll say this, and I'm including myself in this, as families, we haven't done a very good job. Right? We have a tendency now, we want to hand our children over at 5 years old and say, hey, now they're your responsibility. Teach them right from wrong, morality, reading, writing, arithmetic, and everything else, and how to be good citizens on top of it. At the end of the day, we are an institution that has limited resources, and we are only expert in certain things. We are not expert, and we cannot be in all those things. But to answer your question very directly, will funding ultimately force feed issues onto communities. I can't see that happening writ large because you're going to start seeing school board meetings across the nation explode, and at some point there's got to be a redress of those grievances. There has to be local boards that say, you know, we ain't doing it right. Okay? You have a board of education here in Lapeer Community Schools that knows our community very well. Okay? And all that being said, whatever the issue is, I don't have any problem with our students knowing what the issue is, discussing it. None. Where we kind of draw the line in Lapeer Community Schools is what we're going to endorse. Right? And that endorsement can't happen. It has to be, and I use this phrase all the time, a dispassionate facilitation of topics. These things are out there. Our kids are talking about it. They see it. Right? So to close our eyes and say, that's never coming in the schoolhouse door is not good either. Because our kids need to be armed with information of knowing how they feel and also knowing what their opponents feel. Because that healthy debate that happens is what grows your mind. Us deciding as parents what books to keep in and what books to keep out, now, there are some age level appropriate things that we're not going to get into now, but yeah, we're not exposing kids to all things. But if it's age appropriate and it's out there, we need to take it into that laboratory, that classroom, and have the debate. My job is to make sure the teachers are doing it in a way that is neutral.
Okay, good answers. Well, good job, both of you. Thank you very much. And to support what Matt was saying, we asked him here to discuss the school millage, and so that's his main input. The other questions we were asking are good, important questions, and maybe if he's going to hang around here for a little while, if you have a question that you didn't get to ask, you can ask him during that time. You're going to be around for a little bit, Matt. Okay, thank you. Now, at this point, I'd like to take the next few minutes, and we have some other people here that are running for some office around the area. The next meeting, as you know, on the 19th, and that's for the commissioners, and there's about 20 of them. All good people, all big decisions. They're not all here tonight. I don't know why not, but they're not. But there are a few people here that are running for some positions or offices, and I'd like to give them a minute to state their name, tell you what position they're running for, and what area or what precinct it is, and a little bit about themselves. Just kind of briefly state so you get an idea of who it is, or where they're at, and who you're going to be voting for this coming year, this coming November. And also they will be here again on the 19th, the commissioners, along with the sheriff. And he's going to tell us about the millage for the sheriff department, which is another biggie that you're going to want to listen to. So with that being said, we'll start out here with somebody I know is running, and that's Carol. Go ahead, Carol.
Hi, Carol Brown, and that's that again too. So if you live in Mayfield Township 3, I'd like your vote. I'm running for the County Commission District 1, which is Marathon Township, Deerfield 2, Mayfield 1 and 3. I am a committee member, executive committee member of the Republican Party because I became a precinct delegate. So whenever I join something, I try to give it 100%. So I attend all those GOP meetings, as well as I'm one of the directors here at the Tea Party. And I always like to mention I'm vice president of the Christian Motorcycle Association in Lapeer. I've been married 46 years. I've lived in Lapeer 45 years. 3 children, all went to Lapeer schools and graduated from Lapeer East. I can go into a lot of different things like Second Amendment supporter and military and veterans. I support all that. And the main job of a county commissioner is the financial part of running the county and the different departments. I don't have a lot of expertise in that. I was a pharmacy technician, but my husband and I have always been good stewards of the money the Lord has given us, and we've never, gotten into terrible debt or overdrawn ourselves or anything. So I think I'd be a good steward of Lapeer taxpayer money. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Heather? Go ahead and give it to Bill.
Please.
Hello, everybody. My name is William Hamilton. I'm from Lapeer Township. I'm running for County Commissioner in the new District 6, which is Lapeer Township, Metamora Township, and Attica Precinct 2, which is the west side of Attica. One of my biggest things I'd like to do as a commissioner is help the high-speed internet program. I have a background in information technology. I hold a degree and several industry certifications. I believe those skills would greatly help the board and the county move forward in that project. I also support our Sheriff's Department, our seniors, Second Amendment supporter. I enjoy low taxes, but unfortunately sometimes increases are an unfortunate necessity, and we are in kind of a precarious position here with our tax base and all that, as you've heard. But I'll try to keep our taxes under control while maintaining our essential services. Moved here in 2015 from the Lake Orion, Oxford area. I've had family in Lapeer County my entire life. Some of them are still here, so I've been familiar and hung out and been in Lapeer County most of my life in one way or another. I have a 14-year-old daughter starting high school next year in Oxford, and I have my wife. We've been married since 2012, so 11, sorry.
But who's counting?
Oh, man, it's going to get me in trouble. So I ask for your vote on August 2nd, and hopefully you return next week for the Commissioner's Candidate Forum.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Here, Bill.
Oh.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Leroy. I'm running for Precinct Delegate in Mayfield, Precinct 3. I recently got involved in local politics last year. I'm with Stand Up Michigan, and I've been leading election integrity efforts in the county to get people signed up to go to or to work as election inspectors in the county of Lapeer and also in the city of Detroit. I myself will be in the city of Detroit on August 2nd, working the absentee ballot counting board. And I got involved just because I was tired with the way things were going, and I think we can do better and get better representatives. So that's what I want to do as precinct delegate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Who's next? Dial.
Good evening. I'm Dial Henning, and I'm a current county commissioner and have been for a while. I'm here with my wife, Wantu, and I should mention that I'll never forget our marriage date. That was tax day, April 15th, 1975, in South Vietnam, just before we were evacuated out of Vietnam at the end of Vietnamese War. And I was there for 6.5 years. Part of that time with a Peace Corps-like group called the International Voluntary Services, doing youth work, community development, education work, and then on a Fulbright teaching grant, which is where I met my wife. After Vietnam, I came back. I changed my goals dramatically and ended up wanting to do youth work because I thought that was the way that you're really going to make an impact on future generations. Not so much politics, but working with youth. And so then I was hired especially by the 4-H youth program, part of Michigan State University, and I did that for many years until I retired in 2002, and I ran for the board at that point. I enjoy the commissioner's job. I've got a lot of experience, got a lot of energy still to give. I'd like to think, even though I've been doing it a while, my ideas are not fixed. I listen to people. I I change my mind. I look at the issues that we face, try to do the best that I can. So hoping that maybe I can gain support to do it again for a couple of years. So thank you.
Good, thank you.
Oh, one quick thing. I wanted to thank the Tea Party for hosting us, including the speakers on the Millage. You are the only group that cares enough about citizenship, education, and for elections to host these kinds of things. It's really remarkable that you'll give us, and I know you invite people of all parties
Yes.
to be part of that.
Yes.
So I think you need to be commended on that. We take it for granted because you've been doing it for so long.
Thanks, Dial, appreciate it. I'll give you your $10 later.
Might as well add my name to this. Denise is also. I am also Maurice Freed, Mayfield Township. I'm running for re-election for precinct 2. This is my opponent over here. Hopefully the two of us could join together. I've been involved in politics in Lapeer for the last 8 or 10 years, and I got involved through the Lapeer Tea Party because they are an informational, educational group that performs these forums. So I am a conservative Republican, and people know I voiced my opinions very dramatically at some of these meetings, and I feel I failed in persuading the appropriate people to elect the appropriate people through our processes. I'd like to continue to perform at the conventions. I've attended 2 or 3 of those conventions, and again, I think our community is going in slightly the wrong direction. Not necessarily Lapeer, maybe segments of Lapeer, but the state is definitely in the wrong direction. And we need to change it dramatically. And we need the youth to come forward with the assistance of young Mr. Matt Wandry there, with the laboratory and the educational systems that we're doing, to facilitate the change that we need in the proper direction for this state. This state is in drastic. I'm watching television as I'm a retiree. I came by way of, I went from Oakland County, retired to Tennessee for 8 years, came back to Lapeer. My friend DeVette, it tends my horses because that's how I came here to do these activities. And then I started to see some strange things, particularly in the city of Lapeer. And I want to talk to Matt about the border situation that is actually affecting the city of Lapeer. Very, very dangerous situation, I'm telling you folks, and everybody should listen, because we have a fentanyl drug problem that is dramatically affecting the entire county of Lapeer. And young Mr. Coy here, it's the first time, Coy is it? Leroy. Leroy.
Close.
He's running, and we want to change this thing. So I ask for your vote for a re-election, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, you know my name by now, Denise Spurbury-Mustin.
Here's Denise.
I'm entering the process of running for precinct delegate in the 1st precinct of Metamora. It's the first political position that I've been running, that I've gotten involved with, because I do think we need to participate. If we're going to have concerns and we're going to have complaints, we need to participate. I attended all of the school board meetings, or at the high school, the PAC meetings, all the time. So in Metamora, I have a unique position that I'm a horse veterinarian, so I know a lot of people in the community, and I tend to know how they think. They ask me a lot of questions because they know I've been getting more involved, and I thought starting out as a precinct delegate would be a good idea. So I am running in that area, and I hope that if you know anyone in the 1st precinct, I am a conservative person. I did join our local chapter of the Republican Party, thanks to Stephanie. And I very much enjoy the forums here and at our Stand Up Michigan Lapeer chapter meetings. We also try to have dialogue and education. I've helped out with petition signing. We went to the big rally over in Washington, Michigan a couple months ago and collected many, many signatures to help get our elections fairer. And from the standpoint of the neighborhood, I want to listen to what people are concerned about, and if they have questions, be able to answer them. And so I want to be that liaison, and I do want to help influence who we bring along in these elections, like going to the Republican convention in Grand Rapids, which I did this year as an observer. I did help with the hand count vote, which actually perfectly matched the machine count, just so everybody knows. And so we're making progress, but we only make progress if we get up and do something. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Denise. Who else we got? I know we got some more in here someplace.
My name is Myra Bray, and I'm running for precinct delegate in Lapeer Township, precinct 2. And I will only stand for, cast my votes for those who will be willing to uphold the Constitution. I'm a strong believer in getting back to constitutional values, and I will not, I'd like to avoid the people that are more influenced by the higher powers out there, and would not cast my vote for those at any of the conventions. Thank you. Lapeer Precinct number 2, Lapeer Township.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Kurt Hauser, and I'm running for state representative in the 67th district, this one.
Right.
I've been standing up for people's rights all my life at both my workplaces and the people around me. And I would like to congratulate the superintendent on his attitudes towards lack of censorship, but evaluation of ideas and analytical thought. And I could go on about problems in the state forever, but I'll keep it quiet because people have to come to work in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, did we catch everybody? Anybody else running for anything? Dog catcher or anything? We need one of them too, by the way, I think, this year. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Wait a minute, let her talk.
Yeah, Carol Paris. So I just have something from my heart I really, really, really want to impart to all of you on this wonderful mission that you're running for different offices, and either you're an incumbent or you've been here for many years. Just at my age, and I have nothing to lose, so I'm going to tell you what I really think from my heart.
Good.
No more party over people. And if you're a Democrat or Republican or an independent, I don't care what you are, but you're representing something, clean your house. There is no party one better than another. There are differences, different processes. We all want the same thing. We're all citizens. We're all human beings. We want safety. We want our children to have a future. We want a life. And from the top down or the bottom up, we better have the same moral behavior. Our kids are watching. People are losing heart seeing the disaster among officials. And I spoke about machinery. Last time I was here, there's a machinery in place that's been there since probably the Constitution was made. Please, don't be afraid to call out your own people when you see something wrong in your own party. That's the only way we are going to be honest and upright in America again. Because if you don't, you're just falling into the same hole that everybody else is. This gentleman said he couldn't get an answer to a question. Should be public record. There should be no reason why you can't get answers
Absolutely.
to salaries or whatever it is. But we're not trying to hurt anyone. We're trying to call people into accountability. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's going on. But no party is above being censured and brought on to their own accountability. And until we do that, until you really, really face the devil and dance with him, you're not going to get any changes anywhere, and we're going to be back here in a few years saying the same thing. That's my opinion.
Okay.
So thank you, and I'll pray for you that you could all do something to make a good change as you move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Those are good questions. Thank you all for sharing that stuff with us. At this point, let me see what I got to do next here. Okay, we've talked to all the candidates. Good luck on your candidacy, people, for whatever position you're running for. We wish you a lot of luck. We're going to close the meeting here in a minute, and the main speakers are going to talk to people for a few minutes and answer any other questions you may have. They've done a wonderful job of talking tonight. Didn't they? Let's give them another hand. That's a great job, both of you. Okay, again, quickly, our next general meeting will be July 19th, right back here at Mayfield Township Hall at 7 o'clock. And at that meeting, we will have the commissioners. There's about 20 of them. And we also will have the sheriff, and he's going to tell you about the sheriff department millage. Okay? With that, we're going to end the way we start things, and that's with a prayer from Carol. And Carol, please.
Thank you, Tim. Lord, we appreciate the presentations these gentlemen have made here tonight to help us understand just what these ballot proposals are asking the voters for. Help us with our voting decisions on August 2nd. Bless our Lapeer County community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. And with that, we'll close the meeting, and the gentleman